Welcome to the Untold Affairs. Before we dive into today's story, we have a humble request. Please consider subscribing to this new channel. Help us hit our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Your support will motivate us to keep bringing you more exclusive, original cheating wife stories. And now let's get started with today's story. The city's twinkling lights, tall buildings, and the noise of traffic. This New York night seemed as normal as any other night. But for Alex, this night was different. He had a glass of whiskey in his hand, and his eyes were fixed on the hustle and bustle of the city outside the spacious mirrors of his penthouse apartment. His wife, Amy, had not yet returned home. The clock struck 1:15 a.m. Alex, a successful real estate developer who had achieved every happiness of his life through his hard work. But today, he felt lost. Amy had been behaving strangely for the past few weeks, staying out late at night for no reason, checking the phone frequently, and sometimes smiling for no apparent reason. He picked up his phone and tried to call Amy. The ring went, but there was no response. He took a deep breath and sat down on the sofa. His glass of whiskey was now empty. A few minutes later, the door lock opened. Amy came in. She was wearing an expensive black gown, and her hair was still neatly set. He had a slight smile on his face, but there was tiredness in his eyes. "Where have you been so long?" Alex asked in a cold voice. "Oh, sorry, Alex. There was a dinner meeting with the client. I didn't notice the time," Amy said, taking off her coat. "At 1 a.m.? Dinner meeting?" "Yes, there is no fixed time for business meetings. You know." Amy tried to make light of the matter. Alex looked into Amy's eyes. She was hiding something. He didn't say much and went into the room. The next morning, Alex was getting ready for the office. Amy said to him as she made coffee in the kitchen, "I'll be back late this evening. Maybe by 11 or 12 o'clock. There's another dinner meeting with the client." Alex gave a slight smile. "Of course, Amy. Take care of yourself." He picked up the phone and left for the office, but something else was going on in his mind. In the office, Alex called his most trusted friend and assistant, Daniel. "Dan, I need your help." "Absolutely, Alex. What happened?" "I doubt Amy. I think he's hiding something from me. I want you to discreetly monitor his movements." "Are you sure cheating?" "I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that something is not right." Dan nodded. "Okay, I'll see. I will keep you updated." At night, Amy left the house again. She wore a blue dress and her smile was very attractive. She hugged Alex and said, "Don't wait for me. I'm going to be late." Alex smiled and sent him off, but as soon as the door closed, he picked up the phone and called Dan. "Dan, she's just left. Follow him." "On it, Alex." Amy's car stopped outside an expensive hotel. She parked her car and entered the hotel. Dan saw everything from a distance and clicked pictures. She sent an update to Alex. "He was at the Starwood Hotel. I'm going in." A few minutes later, Dan noticed that Amy was sitting in the hotel restaurant with a man. The man was almost the same age as Alex, but his look was extremely attractive and confident. Dan took pictures of them and looked at them for a while. Then he called Alex. "Alex, I think your suspicion is right. She's with a man. They seem very close." Alex's face on the other side of the phone hardened. "Send me the pictures." Dan sent me the pictures. Alex looked at them carefully. Amy was laughing with the man, holding his hand. At 2 a.m., Amy returned home. She looked tired, but there was a glow of satisfaction on her face. Alex was sitting in the living room waiting for him. "How's the meeting?" he asked calmly. "It was great. The client was happy," Amy said. "What was the client's name?" "Alex. It's not necessary. Why do you ask so much?" "Because I know you're lying." Amy's face turned white. "You were at the Starwood Hotel, Amy, and you weren't alone." Amy didn't say anything. Her eyes filled with tears, but she was unable to say anything. Alex showed the pictures in the phone. "What is it, Amy? Who is this man?" There was silence in the room. Amy looked at Alex, but there was no clarity in her eyes anymore. I can explain everything, she said in a low voice. Alex took a deep breath. So explain, Amy. I want to listen. The ticking sound of a clock echoed in the room. Lightning flashed in the sky outside, and the silence between the two stretched like a deep abyss. The silence in the room was thick. The ticking sound of the clock and light showers of rain on the window were making the atmosphere more cumbersome. Amy was sitting on the corner of the sofa, her eyes hesitating and a slight fear. Alex stood by the window, his back to Amy. He had a phone in his hand, in which the pictures of Amy and the unknown man were still flashing. So? Alex asked without turning. I can explain everything, Amy said in a trembling voice. So explain, Amy. But remember, I am judging your every word. Amy took a deep breath, her eyes watering. That man. His name is David. He's an old friend of mine from my college days. Buddy? Alex turned and looked at him. There was a twinkle of anger in his eyes. Sitting in hotel corners with friends and chatting, Amy? Amy's voice began to break. It's not that simple, Alex. I never intended to cheat on you. Everything just happened automatically. Yourself? Alex repeated emphatically. You know, Amy, nothing happens by yourself. It's an election, and you've made your choice. There was silence in the room once more. Lightning flashed in the sky outside. Tears started flowing from Amy's eyes. But I love you, Alex. I'm sorry. Love? Excuse me? Do you think it's that easy? Alex threw the phone on the table and sat down on the couch. His head was in his hands. Leave me alone, Amy. I need time to think. Amy quietly got up and left the room. The door closed softly, and Alex was left alone. The next morning, Alex didn't go to the office. He was sitting in his room, pictures of Amy and David spread out in front of him. His mind was going back again and again, to the moments when he and Amy had bought a house for the first time, when they had spent the holidays for the first time. There was a knock on the door. Alex opened the door. Dan was standing in front. Are you all right, Alex? Am I looking all right, Dan? No, and I can understand. But you should know that David is no ordinary man. What do you mean? Alex asked in shock. Dan handed a file to Alex. David Harper, a notorious businessman. He is accused of money laundering, fraud, and several illegal deals. Why your wife is meeting him is beyond comprehension. Alex read the file carefully. Does Amy know about this? It's hard to say, but one thing is for sure. You need a straight answer from him. Alex took a deep breath. Dan, I want to talk to Amy alone. I want to see if he speaks the truth. In the evening, Amy returned home. She saw Alex sitting in the living room waiting for her. There was a faint light in the room, and a file was placed on the table. Sit down, Amy, Alex said in a calm voice. What happened, Alex? You knew everything about David, didn't you? Amy's face turned white. What do you mean? This means that David Harper is a criminal, and you're meeting him. Did you know all this? Amy rolled her eyes. Yes, I knew. Then why did you lie to me? Amy's voice trembled. Because I'm stuck, Alex. Are you stuck? In what? David. He asked me for a favor, to sign a deal. He said that if I don't help him, he will harm you. Alex's heart stopped beating. And you hid it all from me? I wanted to keep you safe, Alex. I didn't want you to be harmed. Alex took a deep breath. Many questions were arising in his mind. What have you done for him, Amy? Have you signed anything? No, not yet. But he has said that I have to take a decision by tomorrow. We'll see him tomorrow, and I'll sort it out myself. No, Alex, you can't go. He is a dangerous man. Now that's my case, Amy, and I'll finish it. The next day, Alex and Amy arrive at an old warehouse. David was already there waiting. So, Mr. Alex, after all, you're here. David, this must all end. You stop blackmailing Amy. Blackmail? Oh, that's business, Mr. Alex. But if you want it to end, you have to pay the price. At David's behest, 2 guards pointed their guns at Alex. Amy screamed, "No!" But before anything else could happen, the sounds of police sirens were heard from outside the warehouse. Dan informed the police at the right time. The sounds of gunfire began to echo, and there was chaos all around. Alex pulls Amy over and the two hide in a corner. This has to end, Amy. It will end today. The sound of gunfire was still echoing outside, and darkness was deepening. The sound of gunfire echoed in the warehouse. In the darkness, faint light was spreading with flashlights and flashes of gunfire. Alex held Amy's hand tightly, and the two hid behind a large wooden box. Their hearts were beating fast. There was chaos outside. There was a shootout between the police and David's men. "We've got to get out of here, Amy," Alex whispered. "But David, what if he sees us?" Amy's voice was trembling. "This must end now. I won't allow it to go any further." Alex looked around. On the other side of the warehouse was a small door, but they had to cross open ground to reach the door. "Listen, as soon as I point, you run to the door. I'll follow you." "No, Alex, I won't leave you alone." "This is not arguing time, Amy. If we want to get out of here alive, we have to do it." Just then, a bullet passed over his head and hit the wooden box. They both bent down and started breathing heavily. "Run now!" pointed Alex to Amy. Amy rushed to the door, and Alex pulled out his pistol and began to fire cover. In the midst of a hail of bullets, Amy reached the door and pushed it open. Alex fired a few more shots and then ran himself to the door. The two arrived in a narrow lane behind the warehouse. Police sirens could still be heard in the distance. Alex and Amy continued running for a few minutes until they reached the corner of a deserted street. They both sat against a wall, panting. "What? Is that over?" Amy asked tremblingly. "No, Amy, it's not over yet. David is hiding somewhere, and he will not sit quiet until he has a chance to fulfill his purpose." Alex pulled out his phone and called Dan. "Dan, what's the situation?" "We've captured some of David's men, but David has escaped. The police are still searching for him. Where are you guys?" "Amy and I are safe, but we've got to stop David, Dan. He can't do any more damage. I'm tracking the location. If I find anything, I'll update you." The next morning, Alex and Amy were staying in a small hotel. Amy was sitting on the couch, looking out of the window. There was still fear and remorse in his eyes. Alex looked at him silently. "Are you all right, Amy?" "No, Alex. I can never recover. We are paying a price for what I have done." "It wasn't your fault, Amy. You did what you thought was right. But now we have to end it." Just then, Alex's phone rang. "Dan?" "Alex, we've got the location. David is hiding in a private farmhouse on the outskirts of the city. The police are going to get there. But you have to be careful. That guy is dangerous." "Thanks, Dan. That's where we're getting." In the evening, Alex and Amy approached the farmhouse. This place was far from the city, amidst dense forests. The farmhouse was surrounded by high walls and security cameras. "Alex, is that right? Shouldn't we wait for the police?" "No, Amy. If David had the slightest inkling that the police were coming, he would run away. We have to stop it here." Alex scaled the wall and found a way in. Both proceeded cautiously. It was dark all around inside, and a faint light was visible in the distance. "He's in," Alex said in a whisper. They slowly moved towards the main building. David's voice was coming from inside. "Why don't you understand? It's just business. Love, loyalty, all that just seems good in stories." Alex went to the door and peered. David was sitting in a chair, and the guards stood around him. "Now?" Amy asked softly. "You stay here. I'm going in." Alex pulled out his pistol and pushed the door in. "Game over, David." David slowly got up from his chair and clapped his hands. Wow, Alex, I knew you would come, but why did you make it so easy? The guards pointed their guns at Alex. What now, Alex? You're alone, and you have no choice left. But I'm not alone, Alex said. Just then, the police lights flashed through the window. Sirens began to echo outside. Did you call the police? David asked angrily. Yes, it's over, David. David picked up the pistol, but before he could shoot, the police had entered. The sound of gunfire rang out, and David fell to the ground. The next day, Alex and Amy returned home. Sunlight was coming in through the windows. Amy held Alex's hand. Is it all over, Alex? Yes, Amy, it's over. Now we have to start all over again. There was a light breeze outside, and the bustle of the city was back to normal. The sun was slowly setting on the horizon. The faint golden light flickered on the mirrors of New York's skyscrapers. Alex and Amy were sitting in the living room of their luxurious penthouse. There was an awkward silence between the two. As calm and beautiful as the view outside was, the atmosphere inside was equally cumbersome. Can you forgive me, Alex? Said Amy, holding the cup of coffee in her hand. Alex took a deep breath as he looked out of the window. It's easy to forgive, Amy, but forget. It will probably never be possible. Amy's eyes filled with tears. He placed his cup on the table and looked at Alex. What I did cannot be justified on any pretext. I know I've broken your trust, but I never thought of leaving you. Alex looked at him softly. Amy, I want us to give this relationship a chance again, but it won't be easy. We'll both have to try. Amy nodded in agreement. I'll try, Alex. I promise. For the next few weeks, Alex and Amy tried to reinvigorate their relationship. They started spending time together, reliving old memories, and cherishing their relationship gradually. But there was a strange uneasiness somewhere inside Alex, something that had been bothering him again and again. One night, when Alex was busy with his office work, he found Amy's phone lying in the washroom. A notification flashed on the screen. Unknown number? We need to talk again. Alex's heart began to beat faster. He immediately tried to unlock the phone, but the password was locked. Who could it be? Alex muttered to himself. He put the phone back there and left the room. The next day, Alex called Dan. Dan, I need to track Amy's phone messages. I want to find out who this unknown number is. Are you doubting him again, Alex? No. Or maybe yes, I can't believe it. But there's something that still doesn't feel right. Dan transferred the duplicate data of the phone and started investigating. In the evening, Amy invites Alex to dinner. She was wearing a beautiful black dress and had a slight smile on her face. Is today special? Alex asked lightly. No, I wanted us to spend time together. During dinner, Alex looked into Amy's eyes. Do you have anything to say to me, Amy? Amy smiled slightly. No, it's all right. But Alex knew that something was being hidden. The next day, Dan calls Alex. Alex, I've got something. What? That unknown number belongs to one Alan Gray. He is a private investigator. He has called Amy several times and has also sent a few messages. Investigator? Why? I don't know. But there is definitely something wrong here. Alex's mind began to spin rapidly. That night, Alex posed the question to Amy. Amy, who is Alan Gray? Amy's face turned white. How do you know this name? You tell me, Amy. Who is he and why are you talking to him? Amy said tremblingly. Alex, I wanted to tell you the truth, but I was afraid that you would walk away from me. What's the truth, Amy? Alan Gray is an investigator I hired to investigate you. My check? Alex asked in shock. Yes. I thought you were hiding something from me. You're in the office late at night. Your calls. I suspected that maybe you're cheating on me. There was silence in the room. Did you doubt me, Amy? And what was the answer to your doubts? Alan told me that you are absolutely loyal. You've never done anything wrong. But it was too late, Alex. Alex's eyes looked painful. So this whole game, it started with your suspicions? I'm sorry, Alex. I made a big mistake. Alex took a deep breath. He went to the window and looked out at the city lights shining in the darkness. Can we move on from all this, Amy? If you want, we can try. The darkness of the night had deepened. Amy slept in her room. Alex was standing on the balcony, Amy's phone in his hand. A new message popped up on the phone's screen. Alan Gray, did you tell him everything? Alex's face hardened. This game is not over yet. Light drops of rain had begun to fall again, and the New York sky was covered with clouds. The darkness of the night had deepened. Light rain was hitting the balcony mirrors, and the New York City lights seemed dim. Alex's face was stern, and his fingers were holding Amy's phone tightly, messages flashing on the screen. Alan Gray, did you tell him everything? This added to his uneasiness. He put the phone back on the table and took a deep breath. Inside the room, Amy was asleep, her breathing light and calm. Alex had a whirlwind of questions running through his mind. Did Amy really say everything? Or is there still something that's being hidden? The next morning, Alex got up early. He put some papers on his desk and then left for his office. His eyes were tired, but his mind was working fast. Dan was already waiting for him in the office. Alex, you don't look well. Is everything all right? No, Dan. Nothing is right. Who is Alan Gray, and what motive is he attached to Amy? I need an answer to this. I've pulled out Alan Gray's file. He's not just a private investigator. He has information related to many suspicious deals and high-profile cases, and it is interesting to know that he has recently worked on some major corporate espionage deal. Corporate espionage? Are you implying that Amy is part of a larger conspiracy? Dan placed the file in front of Alex. Maybe it's not that simple, Alex. But one thing is certain. Alan Gray is not just spying. He is part of a larger game. Alex looked at the file carefully. One name kept cropping up. Kronos Tech Incorporated. Kronos Tech? Yes, it is a global tech company, which works on artificial intelligence and data analysis, and Alan Gray has an old connection with them. Alex took a deep breath. Dan, I've got to meet Alan Gray. I want to talk to him directly. Will it be safe? I don't care. This mystery has to be solved now. In the evening, Alex was standing outside an old restaurant. This was the same place where Dan had pointed out that Alan Gray comes often. There was a faint light inside, and a man sat alone in the corner of the bar. He had a glass of whiskey in his hand, and his eyes were fixed on the table. Alan Gray? Alex asked softly. Alan raised his head and gave a slight smile. Alex, I was hoping that you would come to see me. Sit down. Alex sat down in front of him. There was silence between the two for a while. Why are you calling my wife? Amy. An interesting woman, but you want to know what the game is really about, right? I questioned Alan. Reply. Alan took a deep breath and handed the file on the table to Alex. Amy was trapped in a deal. Kronos Tech used it to extract some secret information related to your business. What? Alex's face turned red with anger. But Amy didn't cheat on you, Alex. He withdrew at the last minute. He contacted me, and he did all this to protect you. But what? But Kronos Tech is still targeting Amy. They have evidence against him, and if they leak it, your entire business will be ruined. Alex's head turned. So, is there a solution to this? You will have to delete those files from Kronos Tech's servers. It won't be that easy. Absolutely not. But this is your only chance. Alan held out a small pen drive to Alex. It has the protocols that you can use to get into the server. But remember, if you fail, it's all over. Alex picked up the pen drive and put it gently in his pocket. If I do this, Will Amy be safe? Yes, but you have to do it as soon as possible. Alex returned home at night. Amy was sitting in the living room, worry in her eyes. Where did you go, Alex? You knew it all, Amy. What? Kronos Tech. Alan Gray. Why didn't you tell me you were caught up in all this? I was scared, Alex. I thought if I told the truth, everything would be over. Alex hugged Amy. Everything will be okay now. I'll finish it. But you have to promise that you'll be safe. I promise, Alex. In the darkness of the night, Alex sat in his car and headed to the main office of Kronos Tech. There was only one thing in his mind. This has to end, no matter what. The sky was overcast. It had begun to rain lightly. In the distance, Kronos Tech's giant glass tower was glowing, and Alex's carriage was heading towards him in the darkness. The night's pitch darkness and light rain were making New York City even darker. Alex's car stopped in front of the tall glass tower of Kronos Tech. Raindrops were slipping on the glass of the gleaming building, and faint light was reflected out from inside. Guards were stationed at every corner, and CCTV cameras were keeping an eye on every part of the building. Alex took a deep breath and checked his bag. Pen drives, a small handgun, and laptop. These were his weapons. If I don't do it the right way, it's all over. Amy, I'm doing this for you. He adjusted his hat, pulled up the collar of his jacket, and got out of the car. Slowly, he moved towards the side entrance of the building. The interior of the Kronos Tech was state-of-the-art. Gleaming floors, digital screens, and a silence that made everything even more scary. Alex crossed the security gate using his fake ID card. Dan had sent him a map in which the location of the server room was clarified. He slowly walked down the corridor, his breathing quickening with every step. The sound of the guard's footsteps was heard in the distance. Alex grabbed a corner and waited. As the guards turned in the other direction, he moved quickly. The door to the server room was in front, but it was protected by a biometric lock. Dan, do you hear? Alex said in a whisper. Yes, Alex. I'm here. To bypass the lock, you need to enter the code 4793. Alex inserted the code, and the door slowly opened. The server room was cold. Huge server panels lined up on the walls. Red and green lights were flashing continuously. Alex opened the laptop and added the pen drive to it. Code started raining on the screen. Access granted. Dan, I'm in. What now? You will need to find the Omega Project files and delete them completely, but keep in mind, the alarm may be activated. Alex began to type rapidly. Files started loading on the screen. His heart was beating faster with every second. 30%, 50%, 70%. Just then, the red lights in the room flashed and the alarm went off. Security breach detected, lockdown activated. Dan, I need a way to lockdown. Get out the right door, Alex, but hurry up. Alex pulled out the laptop, took out the pen drive, and ran to the door. The guards outside were alert. The sounds of gunfire echoed. Alex took cover and knocked down the two guards and ran quickly up the stairs. The elevator is not safe, Alex. Use the stairs. Dan's voice was trepidated. Alex ran downstairs. Guards were running towards him on every floor. He had fired his last bullets. Upon reaching the basement downstairs, Alex found a service exit. The door was locked, but he opened it with all his strength and ran out. Outside, the rain had intensified. Alex ran into the darkness towards his car. The headlights of the vehicles were flashing from a distance. Just then, a black car sped towards him and stopped right in front of him. The door opened, and a familiar voice was heard from inside. Sit down, Alex. That was Alan Gray. Did you delete the files? Alan asked as he drove away. Yes, I destroyed everything. But how will it all end, Alan? Is Amy safe now? You've done your job, Alex. But Kronos Tech isn't one to give up, so, you and Amy have to leave town for a few days. I'm not one to run away. That's not an escape, Alex. This is for your safety. A few hours later, Alex arrived home. Amy was sitting in the living room waiting for him. Anxiety and fear were evident on his face. "Did everything go well, Alex?" "No, Amy, it's not over yet." "What will happen now?" "We'll leave the city for a few days, until it all calms down." "But Alex, our house, your business, all of that will be cared for when we are alive." Alex took Amy in his arms. There were mixed expressions of fear, anxiety, and love in both of their eyes. In the morning, Alex and Amy left for the airport with a small bag. The sun was rising in the distance, and the darkness of the city was slowly turning into light. But they both knew it was just a temporary respite. Somewhere, the shadow of Kronos Tech was still behind them. This fight is not over yet. Alex and Amy were moving silently between the hustle and bustle of the airport and hundreds of faces. Small bags were hanging over their shoulders, and their eyes were filled with fatigue, fear, and uncertainty. Alex's eyes were scanning every corner closely. He was checking every face, paying attention to every move. "Alex, where do we go?" Amy asked in a low voice. "Dan has set up a safe place. We'll stop for a while in a small town near Los Angeles. No one will find us there." Both of them checked the boarding passes and headed towards the flight gate. Every step was overwhelming, as if some invisible force was trying to stop them. During the flight, Amy was sitting by the window. Outside, the darkness of the night was spreading, and the lights of the city below shone like stars. Alex held her hand. "It's going to be all right, Amy. I promise." Amy smiled slightly, but there was still concern in her eyes. In the morning, his flight landed at a small airport on the outskirts of Los Angeles. It was mildly cold outside, and the sun's rays peeped through the clouds. Dan had already arranged for a rental car. "You drive the car, Amy. I'll keep watching the way," Alex said. The car was speeding on deserted roads. The two entered a small town after a few hours of travel. It was quiet here. Lush green trees, small shops, and only a few people were seen on the streets. "Here we'll be safe for a while," Alex said, stopping the car. They rented a small wooden house. The house was old, but quiet and safe. In the evening, Amy was sitting on the balcony. The sun was setting behind the distant mountains. Alex was sitting in the room checking some files on his laptop. Just then, Alex's phone rang. An unknown number was flashing on the screen. "Hello?" "Alex, I expected you to pick up the phone." "Who are you?" "Your worst nightmare." The phone got disconnected. Alex's face turned white. "What happened, Alex?" Amy asked from behind. "We've got to get out of here, Amy. They have found us." "But we traveled so far. How here?" "I don't know, but now we have to take another step forward." The night had deepened. Alex and Amy packed up the essentials and got into the car. The roads were deserted, but Alex's mind was growing uneasy. At some distance, a black SUV started following their car. "Alex, look back," said Amy timidly. "I see." The speed of the SUV was increasing. Suddenly, gunshots were heard. The glass behind his car was shattered. "Bow down, Amy." Alex turned the car at high speed and took it along a narrow forest path. The SUV was coming backwards. His car was running through the trees, blowing dust. Alex's heart was beating fast. "What are you going to do now, Alex? We will mislead them." Alex suddenly turned the car towards a narrow trail and turned off the headlights. The car hid in the dark. The SUV went ahead looking for his car. Alex and Amy decided to get out of the car and hide in the woods. Both of them were running among the dense trees. Light drops of rain were falling on their faces. "Let's stop here," Alex said. "Will they find us?" Amy asked tremblingly. "No, we are safe." Just then, a faint light flashed through the trees. The voices of the guards could be heard. "They've found us!" Alex grabbed Amy's hand and the two quickly ran in the other direction. After several hours of running, the two reached a small cave. There was an old crumbling cabin over there. "Let's stop here. We'll have to rest for a while, Alex said. Amy was tired. She sat down in the corner of the cabin. Alex was out watching. Just then, another message came on his phone. The more you run, the closer we'll come. The game is going to be over, Alex. Alex's face hardened. Now this escape game has to end. This fight will end here. In the morning, Alex prepared some weapons near the cave. He looked at Amy. It's the last time, Amy. Now we will either survive, or it will all be over. I'm with you, Alex. The first rays of the sun broke the dense darkness of the forest. There was a light breeze. The sounds of vehicles and the shouts of guards were heard in the distance. Now or never. Alex loaded his pistol and took a deep breath. There was a slight coolness in the silence of the forest. A light layer of fog was spread over the ground, and the first rays of dawn were flickering on the leaves of the trees. Alex was hiding behind the tree, pistol in hand and vigilante in the eyes. Amy was hiding within the cave, her breathing fast and uncertain. Amy, I'm going out. You get out of the back way if I don't come back, Alex said in a low voice. No, Alex, I can't leave you alone. This is not the time for debate. We have to end this. Alex took a deep breath and walked out of the tree. In front of him stood 3 guards, guns flashing in their hands. Stop! You have no choice left, shouted one of the guards. But for Alex, these voices didn't matter anymore. He quickly picked up his pistol and aimed it. 2 bullets hit the guards directly in the chest. The third guard panicked and began to retreat, but Alex grabbed him. Where's your boss? Alex asked angrily. They are near the farmhouse. Everything is being planned there. Alex knocked the guard unconscious and hurried towards the cave. Amy, we have to get out of here. They are near the farmhouse. We have to go there and finish everything. Is it safe, Alex? It's no longer a question of safe or unsafe. It's a matter of ending. Both of them hurriedly packed up the belongings and started moving towards the farmhouse through the dense paths of the forest. Alex's mind was working fast. After a few hours of travel, the two reached a small hill. A large farmhouse was visible below, with tight security around it. Dozens of guards were patrolling the area and CCTV cameras were scanning every corner. It won't be easy to get there, Alex said, looking at him with a binocular. Then what will you do? Amy asked in a worried tone. We have to find a different path. Maybe there's an entry point from the back. The two slowly descended the hill and headed towards the rear part of the farmhouse. There was a small gate at which the security was loose. You can go in from here, Alex said. The two carefully crossed the gate and entered the backyard of the farmhouse. It was dark inside, but faint noises could be heard. There's something wrong here, Alex said in a whisper. Should we back down? Amy asked timidly. Number, we've come this far. There's no point in backing down now. Alex slowly opened a door. Inside was a large hall with laptops and several files on a table in the middle. There's something big planned here, Alex said. Just then, a voice came from behind. I knew you'd be here, Alex. Alex and Amy looked back. In front of him stood David, a gun in his hand and the same cold smile on his face. Game over, Alex. You tried very hard, but in the end, victory will be mine. You're wrong, David. This game is about to end. Oh, really? David said with a laugh. Do you think you'll be able to finish it all? This is just the beginning, Alex. Just then, Amy suddenly picked up a glass bottle and hit David on the head. David fell to the ground, and his gun slid to the floor. Run away, Alex! Cried Amy. Alex and Amy hurried out of the hall. The voices of guards and gunshots were heard from behind. There was chaos in the farmhouse. We have to find the server room. That's the end of the game. The two proceeded down the aisle and reached the server room. Alex quickly opened the laptop and inserted the pen drive given by Alan Gray into it. 30%, 50%, 80%. Quicken up, Alex, said Amy nervously. Just then, the voices of guards were heard at the door. The door was shaking violently. 99%. 100%. Files have been deleted. Alex pulled out the pen drive and the two quickly walked out the back door. Outside in the woods, the two were running forward. There was a blast in the farmhouse from behind, and the flames began to rise to the sky. "Is it over, Alex?" Amy gasped. "Yes, Amy. Now it is over." A few days later, Alex and Amy were sitting on a quiet beach. The sun was setting and the waves of the sea were touching their feet. "We are no longer in danger, are we?" Amy asked with a smile. "No, Amy. Everything is fine now." Alex held Amy's hand and the two watched the sun set on the horizon. After every storm comes a quiet morning. But somewhere, there was still a question in Alex's mind. Is it really over? The waves of the sea were crashing against the shore and returning, as if time was erasing its old footprints. The sun was slowly bending down in the sky, and the golden light was scattered over the seawater. Alex and Amy were sitting on a wooden bench, fatigue on their faces and worry lines in their eyes. Both were silent, as if words had no meaning. Alex had in his hand the little note he had found at David's farmhouse. "Project Omega never ends." The shadow of worry and disbelief in his eyes deepened. Amy gently held his hand. "Do you think it's really over?" There was a slight tremor in Amy's voice. Alex looked at him and took a deep breath. "Probably not, Amy. There is something that is still incomplete. This note. It's a sign that all is not lost." Amy's eyes were twinkling with fear, but she handled herself. "So what are you going to do now?" he asked softly. Alex looked up at the sea, its waves as if responding. "We have to go back. We have to finish this game where it started." The next day, the two arrived at a small airport. Their luggage was light, but the burden on their shoulders was heavy. Alex took the flight ticket and looked silently at Amy. "Are you ready for this?" Amy said with a slight smile. "As long as you're with me, I can face anything." Inside the plane, Alex looked out of the window and thought, "Is this really going to be the last time?" After 48 hours, the city of New York was in front of their eyes. The skyscrapers, the lights, and the endless noise of traffic. Everything seemed normal, but Alex knew that behind this mediocrity lay a danger. They rented a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, overlooking the building at Kronos Tech. Alex opened the laptop and tried to access the server. Error messages were coming on the screen repeatedly. "They have increased security. We need help from someone inside," she told Amy. At night, the two reached a deserted street. The darkness was thick, and in the distance a man was leaning against the wall. "I thought you'd come back," he said in a low voice. "Alan Gray?" Alex asked. "Yes. The game of Kronos Tech is still ongoing. His Omega Phase 2 project is currently active." Alex narrowed his eyes and said, "We've got to stop this. Can you help us?" Alan held out a file to him. "It's a location, an offshore base in the middle of the sea. But remember, it won't be easy to come back alive." The next night, Alex and Amy were aboard a small boat. The waves of the sea were raging, and the cold wind was tearing their faces. A large industrial structure was visible from a distance, standing in the middle of the sea. This was the secret base of Kronos Tech. "We've got to get in from underwater," Alex told Amy. Both wore scuba gear and plunged into the depths of the ocean. The scene inside the base was frightening. Flashing screens, CCTV cameras, and armed guards were stationed everywhere. The corridors were narrow and dark. "The server room is over there." Alex looked up from the binocular. Both of them cautiously proceeded down the corridor. Suddenly, a guard saw them. "Wait there," he shouted. Alarms began to sound and red lights flashed everywhere. Alex and Amy quickly ran away. Upon reaching the server room, Alex opened the laptop and inserted the pen drive given by Alan into the system. Codes began to rain on the screen. 70%, 80%. Tonuru sadavidam. Just then, a crowd of guards gathered at the door. The sounds of gunfire echoed. Amy took cover and tried to clear the way for Alex. 99%, 100%, system failure. The message flashed on the screen. Done, Amy. Now we have to run. The two ran through the corridors to the rear of the base. The guards were chased from behind and a barrage of bullets continued. Alex and Amy leaped into the water. There was a loud bang in the base behind them, and fireballs began to rise to the sky. Waves of water dragged them away. A few hours later, the two were found lying on a deserted beach. The first rays of the sun touched their faces. Amy slowly opened her eyes and looked at Alex. "Is it over?" he asked softly. Alex smiled and said, "Yes, Amy. It's over." A few days later, the two were in a quiet village. A light breeze was blowing and the sky was clear. Alex held Amy's hand. "Now we don't have to be afraid. The story ends here." Amy looked into Alex's eyes with a slight smile. The waves of the sea touched the shore and returned, as if they were writing the last chapter of this story. The soft sound of the sea waves and a gentle, cool breeze made that morning relaxed. Alex and Amy stayed in a small seaside cabin. The first rays of the sun filled the sky with light orange and pink shades. Alex stood on the balcony, holding a cup of coffee in his hand, and his eyes staring at the blue expanse of the sea. Amy came up to him and put her hand on his shoulder. "You're still thinking, aren't you?" Amy said in a low voice. "Yes, Amy. Despite this ending, it looks like there's something left. It's like a shadow is still behind us. But we destroyed that server, Alex. Chronos Tech is over. Maybe. But there is still restlessness in my heart, as if it were all just one layer, and the real game is yet to come." That same afternoon, Alex received a call on his phone from an unknown number. The number on the screen was flickering. Alex picked up the phone. "Hello? Mr. Alex O'Connor? Do you really think it's over? Who are you? It is not important for you to know. But what is important is that you have just closed one door, but the whole house is still standing." The call got disconnected. Alex's face hardened. Amy looked at him. "Who was it, Alex?" "Someone who knows what we have done. We have to get out of here immediately." That night, Alex and Amy packed their belongings and left the cabin. They hired an old Jeep and started moving towards the city through the forest paths. The roads were deserted, and a light rain shower made their journey more difficult. After a few hours of travel, they stopped at a deserted motel. Peeking out of the bedroom window, Alex saw a black SUV stop in front of the motel. His breathing quickened. "Amy, we have to leave now. They have found us." "But where will we go?" "I'll call Dan. He can help us." Alex calls Dan. "Dan, we're in trouble. They're tracking us again. Alex, I'm sending you a safe location. Give me an update as soon as you get there." Alex and Amy drove the Jeep through deserted roads. A black SUV was following them from behind. The sounds of gunfire echoed in the air. Alex turned the car sharply and entered the path of the forest. "Lean in, Amy," she shouted. The guards of the SUV were continuously firing bullets. Amy was trembling with fear, but there was confidence in her eyes. Alex hid the carriage in the bushes of the forest on a sharp turn. The SUV overtook some distance ahead. "Did we survive?" Amy asked softly. "For now. Yes, but we have to move forward on foot. The car is no longer safe." The path to the forest was dark and silent. The light drizzle continued, and the sense of danger was increasing with every step. "Alex, I'm scared." "I'm not going to let anything happen to you, Amy. Just come with me." After a few hours of travel, the two arrived at an old, abandoned church. The windows of the church were broken, and there was silence inside. Alex closed the door, and the two sat down in a corner. "We'll have to stay here for a few hours." The night had deepened. A faint commotion could be heard outside the church. Alex looked out the window. Red flashlights were flashing in the distance. "They've come this far." Just then, the main door of the church opened with a loud bang. 4 guards entered. "Run, Amy!" Alex pulled out his pistol and started firing. 2 of the guards fell down, but the other 2 moved faster. Amy ran to the back door, but just then a guard caught her. "Amy!" shouted Alex as he shot at the guard. Amy missed and ran out the back door. The first light of the morning was spreading. Alex and Amy were sitting on the side of a hill. The hustle and bustle of the city was visible in the distance. "How long are we going to run, Alex?" "Until it's all over, but now we have to strike back instead of hiding." "How?" "Dan may have some information. We have to meet him." The next day, the 2 arrived at a secret location. Dan was already there waiting for them. "Are you both okay?" Dan asked in a worried tone. "We're fine, but it's not all over. I've dug through a few more files from Kronos Tech. The last phase of the Omega project is still active, and its control. The city is in a secret base. So the game will end there." Dan gave a map and some tools to Alex. "This could be your last fight, Alex." "You're right, Dan. This will be the last battle." The sun was slowly setting. The sky had turned red, and there was a dark shadow of resolve on the faces of the 3. This has to end now. This time, forever. The city's twinkling lights and tall buildings looked even more grand in the silence of the night. A light cold wind was blowing, and Alex sat inside his car, carefully looking at the map of Kronos Tech's secret base. Amy was sitting next to him, and the worry lines were clearly visible on her face. Dan was sitting in the back seat of the car, doing some data analysis on a laptop. "Look here, Alex," Dan said, pointing to the screen. "This base is hidden in an old subway line underneath the downtown area of the city. This base is so secure that no one can guess its presence from outside. But here is a ventilation system, which will give us the only way to get in." "Is it possible to get there?" Amy asked, worried. "It won't be easy, but it's our last hope," Alex said in a firm voice. The car was moving slowly through the silent corridors of the city. Many thoughts were swirling in Alex's mind. He knew it was his last chance. If they fail this time, everything will be over. It was midnight. The 3 of them approached an old subway entrance parked in a deserted street. The gate was rusted, and it was dark on every side. Alex took a cutter out of his bag and cut the lock. The door slowly creaked open, and a cool breeze came out from inside. "Walk carefully," Alex whispered. The tunnels of the subway were narrow and shrouded in darkness. Water was dripping all over the place, and faint sounds echoed. The 3 of them walked slowly behind each other. "Dan, where's the ventilation shaft?" Alex asked softly. 50 meters forward to the left." After some time, they saw a metal grill on the wall. Alex removed the grill and peered inside. The ventilation shaft was narrow, but it was possible to get inside the base through it. "Amy, stay here. Dan and I are moving in. If something goes wrong, get out." "No, Alex, I'll go with you," Amy said firmly. "It's not safe." "I don't care, I can't leave you alone." Alex nodded, conceding. "All right, but be careful." All 3 crawled through the ventilation shaft and reached inside the base. The scene below was like a high-tech science fiction movie. Big screens, high server poles, and dozens of people sitting in front of monitors transferring data. "This is the heart of the Omega project," Dan said softly. "We've got to get to that main server," Alex said with a chuckle. They moved slowly. Guards were patrolling the corridor. Alex grabbed one of the guards from behind and knocked him unconscious. Dan took out the guard's badge and put it on the scanner. The door opened, and they entered. The main server room was cold and spacious. Red and green lights flashed everywhere. Dan opened the laptop and inserted a pen drive into the system. "I'm bypassing firewalls, but it will take some time," Dan said, typing fast. "Hurry up, Dan." Alex looked at the door, holding up his pistol. Then the alarm went off. The red lights flashed rapidly. A cold sound echoed from the speaker. "Intruders detected. Security teams are being sent to the server room." "They're coming," said Amy nervously. Dan, hurry up. 90%, 95%, almost done. The door broke down, and dozens of guards broke in. Bullets began to fly. Alex gave cover to Dan while firing. Amy hid in a corner and fired at the guards. 100% files have been deleted. The server is crashing, shouted Dan. Sparks started coming out of the server. The message of system failure was flashing on the screen. We've got to get out of here, shouted Alex. The trio ran through the back door and took the path of an emergency staircase. The sounds of explosions and smoke were spreading from behind. As soon as they got out, they noticed that the entire base was slowly collapsing. The sounds of police sirens and helicopters were heard in the distance. Did we overdo it? Amy gasped. Yes, Amy. It's over, Alex said, heaving a sigh of relief. A few days later, Alex, Amy, and Dan were sitting in a quiet place. The sun was setting and a light breeze was blowing. What now, Alex? Dan asked. Now we will start our lives again. Chronos Tech is over. Amy held Alex's hand. There were slight smiles on their faces, and there was a new hope in their eyes. The sun was slowly setting on the distant horizon, and a slight redness was spreading in the sky. Every story has an end, and it's the beginning of that end. The sun had gone down, and the sky had sunk into deep blue. A gentle, cool breeze made the atmosphere relaxed. Alex, Amy, and Dan were sitting by the sea. The waves were slowly touching the shore and returning as if they too had stopped to see the end of this story. There was relief, fatigue, and a deep peace on the faces of all three. So, it's finally over, Amy said, looking out at the sea. There was a slight tremor in his voice, but there was a sense of comfort in his eyes. Yes, Amy. Chronos Tech came to an end. His Omega project has now just been reduced to ashes, Alex said with a deep sigh. But really? Are we safe now? Dan asked softly. We've done everything we can, Dan. The servers have been destroyed, David is dead, and Chronos Tech will no longer be able to stand on its feet. The three were silent for a while. The stars in the sky were beginning to twinkle, and the slight coolness gave a little relief to their fatigue. Alex, said Amy in a low voice, you never questioned me why I hid from you. Because, Amy, I knew your intentions weren't bad. What you did for me. And now, when everything is over, we must move on. Amy had tears in her eyes. He gripped Alex's hand tightly. The next day, Alex and Amy decided to return to town. They knew it wouldn't be easy. So many dangers, so many memories were with them. But they also knew they had survived the storm and that they had a second chance. The hustle and bustle of New York City welcomed them. They returned to the same penthouse apartment where it all began. The walls of the house were still the same, but there was a different peace in the atmosphere. Alex reset up his office, and Amy decides to start her life afresh. But somewhere, in the corner of his mind, there was still a faint fear. A few weeks later, Alex received a stranger envelope. The envelope was white, and no name was written on it. Alex slowly opened it. Inside was a little letter. Every story has an end, but some stories never end. Do you think you've really finished the game? Alex's heart began to beat faster. He clenched the letter into his fist and looked out of the window. The lights of New York City were still shining, and the streets were full of people. What happened, Alex? Amy asked from behind. Nothing. I just remembered old things. Alex put the letter in a drawer and looked at Amy. We must move on, Amy. The story should end here. A few months later, Alex and Amy decided to leave New York and settle in a quiet town. There were green valleys, clear skies, and tranquil peace. Amy started her gardening, and Alex opened a small cafe. Every morning, the sun's rays peeped through his window, and every evening he sat on the balcony sipping tea and admiring the changing colors of the sky. Everything is quiet now, Amy said with a slight smile. Yes, Amy. This is real life, without fear, without any danger. The sun was setting behind the distant mountains, and a light pink shade spread across the sky. But somewhere far away, in a dark room, data was loading onto a computer screen. Flashed in light red letters on the screen, Project Omega, rebooting. Someone let out a faint, cold laugh, and the room went dark. Alex and Amy had no idea that the threat they ended up with was starting again from somewhere else. But for the moment, they were happy, safe, and this chapter of their story ended there. Every story has an end, but some endings just point to a new beginning.